Welcome back to the Grio Weekly. We're continuing our conversation with Dr. Frita Fisher on the best ways to stay healthy this cold and flu season. And Dr. Fisher, before we went to the commercial, we were talking about the dreaded C word, COVID-19. If we thought it was behind us, it wasn't. But one of the things that came with COVID-19 was a lot of vaccine skepticism. Despite years of research that has shown vaccines are safe, despite many of us getting vaccines ourselves before we went into the workplace or to school, we dealt with a new sort of culture of resistance around vaccines. So let us take this moment right now, Dr. Fisher, to set the record straight again. Are vaccines safe? Do we have anything to worry about?
Vaccines are safe. And you brought up such a great point, Natasha. We've been getting vaccines in order to even go to school, to go to certain jobs all of our lives. Polio, measles, hepatitis has been routine, but we had such a divide with COVID-19, a really life-threatening divide, where you had people who would just stand in their anti-vax state regardless of the facts. And we do know that once those vaccines came around for COVID, that we started seeing lives saved. When we looked at people who were actually getting very sick and dying from COVID-19, those were primarily people who had not been vaccinated. We saw that. We know that the vaccines are safe and that the benefits far outweigh the risks. I will say this,
yes.
We are in a different climate. When the COVID vaccines first came about and we had just so many thousands and thousands of deaths every day and the pandemic was completely out of control, at that point, we did not have very many people in society who had good immunity. The good news about now versus then is that over 97% of people living in the United States have either had COVID-19 or been vaccinated or both. And so we do, as a community now, have more of an antibody protection than we had before. That's true. Nevertheless, people still are getting hospitalized from COVID-19. People are still dying, especially immunocompromised patients. So now we have the updated COVID-19 boosters that should be able to help to decrease people getting very sick, decrease people from actually dying from COVID-19. Those boosters are available. I've had my booster for COVID-19. All three of my children have had their boosters. We've had our flu vaccines as well. And I shared that so you know that I'm practicing what I preach. I believe in the safety of the vaccines and in the importance of them in protecting our families.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you brought that up because, again, there are people who think, well, now that I've had COVID-19, what's the point of getting vaccinated? They assume that it's going to be mild every time. But if we all do our part, then we can ensure that we keep this at bay in the same way that just because you recovered from the flu doesn't mean you shouldn't get a flu shot. Really quickly on both of those things, is it safe and okay to get both shots at the same time or the same day? What do you recommend about self-care or once you actually get the vaccine?
You can get them both on the same day at the same time. And again, for myself and my children, we got our COVID-19 boosters as well as our flu vaccines on the same day. It is safe and they will still be as effective.
Okay, great. And how long does it last, Dr. Fisher? Is there a sort of expiration? Is this a once a year thing? We've gotten a lot of honestly confusing information at times. So how long will it last and when do we need to go back to get it?
Well, first, I'll speak on the flu vaccine. We know that the flu is seasonal and it literally changes every year. So that's why we get a flu vaccine that's updated each year. You only need one flu shot a year. With COVID, because science is just ever evolving, that is a bit of a moving target. Right now, we feel like you can get the booster and then we will just reassess in 6 months. For people who are immunocompromised, cancer patients, chemotherapy patients, patients with immune diseases like lupus, they may need to go ahead and get another booster in 6 months. But that's one of those things, Natasha, because COVID is still very new, we're constantly testing and figuring out when and if the new variants outsmart our vaccines. And when and if they do, we may need updated boosters.
Okay, Dr. Fisher, that's super helpful. I want to give a quick shout out to my mask mafia. those are the people who are still wearing masks. I'm a member of the mask mafia. Sometimes people look at you a little crazy when you have a mask on, but it does serve a purpose. I mean, frankly, I have a father who has cancer. I'm a loopy, right? A person who lives with lupus. And so therefore, I'm always having to be cautious about, just keeping myself safe and away from germs. Can we talk about masks as we wrap up today? Do you encourage them? Do you need them? Or it does just depend on who you are?
Masks do work to prevent infections. And you're right on being a part of the mask tribe. We know that especially proper masks like N95s, KN95s, they help to prevent infections.
Dr. Frita Fisher, thank you so much for joining us and helping us set the record straight. Hope everybody took some notes at home and spreads the word about how to stay healthy. Well, coming up on the Grio Weekly, we'll tell you why some are comparing the financial impact of Beyonce's Renaissance tour to the Olympics. That's right. But first, they say the third time is a charm. Hear how this entrepreneur turned defeat into a thriving clothing business. Up next.
We ready to go, come and get it right now. We got what you like now.